Go Loud presents the Talking Bollox podcast.
What you waiting for? Put your back in it. Just a little more. Throw your weight in it now. Tell your body you can. Walk it hard and long. When you finish that,
The hip knocker.
go down, go down, go down. Come up, come up, come up.
Summer is coming, the sun is shining, shorts are off, and your balls are smooth. Yeah, you did hear that right.
Manscaped are here to make sure you're not killing the vibe with your pubes sticking out of your swim shorts.
That's why Manscaped has a Performance Package 4.0 to keep the party in your pants crisp and refreshing. And here's what you get inside. You get the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, Performance Boxer briefs, and a handy travel bag to hold all your goodies.
The trimmer's waterproof too, and it's a nice way to stay tidy down there.
And there's more. The package comes with 2 free gifts. The Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag to take your comfort to a whole nother level.
Dive headfirst into summer by joining 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. Head over to manscaped.com for 20% off by using the code GOLOUD20.
With that code, you'll get 20% off and free worldwide shipping. Make sure your package is the full package this summer with Manscaped.
Boom, episode 75 of the Talking Bollox podcast brought to you by Go Loud. It's me, Terry Flower,
It's me, CLB.
and this week we're joined by...
Tony O'Reilly.
That's your cue, Tony.
That was your cue to go. This week we're not going to run with any zingers, any suggestions, anything like that. We're on the clock, but also this is a more serious podcast as well. It's something that we're both passionate about and we want to get into. And Tony, you're the perfect guest for that. If you want to give us a short brief about what you're going to talk about with us today.
I suppose today I'm going to talk about my gambling addiction and give a snapshot, I suppose, of how it started off as a recreational activity, small £1 bet, and then where it ended up, totally derailing my life. And I suppose also just talk about the, I suppose, bouncing back after as well. I suppose that's an important part of it too.
Yeah, so this is something that we've actually talked about numerous amount of times on this podcast, Tony, and in more recent weeks it's kind of reared its ugly head again, and we're like, you know what, we need to actually get someone who's been through the mill with this and then come out the other side as well to talk about the dark side of gambling and how it's a invisible addiction, you know, because we talk about addiction a lot on this, but substance abuse, and you see the physical aspect of that, but what you don't see with gambling is the physical, what's actually going on mentally. Sorry, you can't really see it physically, and what it's actually doing to somebody behind the eyes. So that's why we wanted to get somebody in, and I think you're the perfect guest for that. So we both have our own personal experiences with gambling, and we will touch on that. We've done it before, but it's been a long time since we actually got into the details, so we'll come around to that. But if you want to take us back to the start, Tony, and talk about just maybe a short intro of where you grew up and then how you got to do your first bet.
So I was born in Carlow, bang in the centre of the town, and lived a normal life. Family of 3, myself and 2 sisters. Growing up, I suppose your normal, everyday happy lad. We're out playing soccer in the fields, doing knickknacks, knocking on people's doors and running away, stuff like that. Like just a normal, happy childhood. But I always felt I always had that little bit of insecurity in me. Always felt on the peripheral of groups and trying to find my own, I suppose, place in my group of friends. And I often kind of drifted between groups of friends. I suppose my first ever kind of experience of gambling would have been when my dad brought home, well, not really gambling, I suppose, was probably seeing it. My dad brought home an Amstrad CPC 464, if any of you remembered, an old kind of style home computer, something like the Commodore 64 that was out years ago. I'm definitely showing my age. And I was 10 at the time, and some of the games that came with it were free games. You load them in with the cassette, and one was a fruit machine game. And when I'm even doing some of the talks nowadays, or my some of the school talks, I show a clip of it. And even like 37 years later, I can still hear the sound and see the visuals of it. So even back then, it kind of grabbed my attention. And I suppose growing up as well, I would have surrounded myself by nice things. I would have bought music. And as you were saying today, I was in Tower Records buying stuff as well today. And to kind of combat the insecurity, I used to surround myself by nice things. And in my room, best of tellies, best of stereos, and a lot of music, and everything had its place, and that was a way for me always to kind of settle myself. And my first probably experience of gambling wasn't really until I was 24, which in today's
It's a bit
world is very late.
Very late,
Like,
yeah.
I remember,
Yeah, it was 98, the World Cup
doing my
quarter
first
final.
bets at 16,
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
It was a different landscape back then for me, I suppose. It was a lot of the gambling, or most of the gambling was done in bookie offices. Online wasn't really a thing. Like smartphones only came in 9 years later, so it wasn't really a thing, and it wasn't a thing in my circle of friends. Whereas nowadays, you know, we work with people who are 17, 18, 19 in full blown addiction from gambling. So, yeah, my life growing up, I suppose I left college. I went to the local IT. Very young, doing my leaving cert, went to local IT, left college, and went out working at an early age. And probably the sign of things to come is I really liked having money and buying things, and that's always been a narrative throughout my life, was buying stuff. And even today, while in Dublin, like, I'm just buying stuff. Like, and even though I haven't gambled in nearly 11 years, I would definitely cite online shopping and shopping as something I have to be very mindful of.
Like an impulse thing.
Impulse control disorder, as gambling used to be.
Yeah.
But definitely that compulsivity. If you told me to have a new band, and I kind of heard one of their songs, I'd nearly have that feeling of I need to go and buy all their albums.
Yeah.
Just to have them. And I really kind of, even now today, like while I'm in good recovery from gambling, it's something I have to be very mindful of, and something that I kind of constantly am working on or battling against, as well as obviously being in recovery from gambling.
Do you still get that impulse too? Like, do you still feel like you could slip even though you're 11 years?
Yeah, like for example, like I wouldn't have had it for about a year, but I was over at the Liverpool-Everton game a couple of weeks ago, and you know, I was walking down the centre of Liverpool at, I think it was about 9:45 in the morning, and walking past the Ladbrokes. I can't really remember which book it was. I think it was the Ladbrokes, and the door was open, real inviting, kind of not like here where it'd be a small door. Like the whole thing was open, and for 2 seconds in my head, it kind of, no one knows me here. I could actually go in and place a bet, and no one knows me. So even I always say when I'm working with clients that if enough things line up, I very much could go back gambling. I just have to be very mindful of that, and especially with the shopping and with the other impulse that I have. I'm very mindful of every day for me is a day kind of working on recovery.
That's mad. I'm kind of hung up on the fact that you were 24 doing your first bet, because I was definitely under the age of 18 when I was in the bookies betting, and that was just a casual thing which our mates used to do it. You got a 5 or a 10, you do an accumulator on a Saturday, hoping that you'd get served, and 9 times out of 10 you did.
Yeah.
And then because you're down there not often enough, usually your one behind the till would know you.
Yep.
You'd have no problem getting served. And then you said about the smartphones making it easy. I thought it made it more difficult because you had to verify your account then with a smartphone.
Yeah, well, I've done TY talks this year, and you know, I remember asking a group of 20 lads how many of them gambled, and half of them, they were brilliant class and they were very honest. Half of them turned and said they had online accounts, and I said, how do you manage to get an online account open? And they said, because we manipulate the data on our phone. And one of them said, Paddy Power thinks I'm 28. And I think it's more so when they try to take the money out, that's when they get
does
trouble.
happen, yeah.
But they can get the accounts open and get the bets on, but it's when they try to take the money out.
Yeah.
That's why we need more, or we need some kind of legislation, regulation, which hopefully it's on its way.
So take us back to 98. You said it was the World Cup.
Yep.
So talk us through that experience. What makes you at 24 say, do you know what, I'm actually going to go into the bookies now? Something that I could have done probably 6 years ago, but now I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I was working in a bar called Scragg's Alley, which is in my hometown. Very busy bar back in the day. A friend of mine was sitting at the counter having a few pints waiting for the match to kick off. It was around lunchtime, and I remember he just very innocuously said to me, I'm going down to place a bet in the match. And I just said, remind me lunch break, I'll go down and have a look. So I went down, the bookie office was actually the back stairs in the car park where I used to work, and went in. I was blown away by the hustle and bustle. You know, it was mainly older men, and kind of there was dockets on the ground and pens. You know yourself what bookies, inside bookies. And I was taken back by the energy in there, and I decided I was going to place a bet on Patrick Kluivert to score first. He was odds about 6 or 7 to 1. And I didn't carry cash with me when I was in work. I had a couple of loose coins in my pocket, an old Irish punt.
Yeah.
And I decided to place £1 on him at 6 to 1 or 7 to 1, whatever, and for him to score first. And just as I was about to do, I noticed a special on the board for him to score first and Holland to win 2-1 was 45 to 1. And I said to my friend, why don't I do that one? He said, you'd be mad, sure, 3 or 4 things have to happen within the match. And my exact words to him was, like, it's only £1.
Yeah.
And he flicked £1 at me, he said, you'll have probably have beginner's luck, stick £1 on for me as well. And we put the bet on, went back up to watch the match, and he did score after 12 minutes, Kluivert. And then I think Lopez for Argentina equalised after 17 minutes. And then for the next 73 minutes, we headed every ball, we kicked every ball. It was... And we were telling everyone about the bet. So, like, everyone was congratulating. Yeah, and you're investing it. But also people are congratulating you, even if when you haven't even won the bet yet, and saying, how did you even think of that? Like, you must be good at this. And in the 89th minute, the Bergkamp goal, the famous World Cup goal, Bergkamp's goal. And I often say when I'm doing the talks in schools, like, it wasn't just the fact that we won £45. Like, at £45 back then, probably about a third of a week's wages for me. Like, probably the equivalent to putting €3 or €4 on today and winning 120, 150 euro, something like that. And which was a lot of money for me at the time.
Yeah, definitely.
But it was also how it happened. Like, the ball was taken down from the sky and he rifled it past the keeper. So it wasn't just the money, it was the buzz I got from the way it happened. Like, we've all watched, like, even watching the Premier League over the weekend, you see City come back to win 3-2. It's how it happens. It's
like written
more
in
of
the
a buzz.
stars kind of thing, yeah.
And I remember everyone was congratulating us, and I often tell the story as well that we were, we went drinking for the night, buying people drink for the night, and later on that night, because I worked in Scraggs, we were getting lemons from behind the bar and reenacting the goal. We were, and everyone was congratulating us. Yeah. And going to bed that night thinking this is easy. This is an easy way to make money.
And what's that your thought? Yeah, you thought, like, this is going to be, like, in your head, you'll probably think, I'm going to be a millionaire too.
Every time I make a bet, I can pick it out because I either have luck or I know something about football.
Yeah.
Or you think you know something about football. And, it stayed at that level for about 5 years because I very much like what you described. You go in at the weekend, you place your football bet, 5 or 10 or here. It was entertainment. It was a way of, I used to work every Saturday afternoon. And it was very much, you watch soccer Saturday and if the bet came in, brilliant. No, more so than not, it didn't, but you had a bit of crack with it, a bit of entertainment. It was only when I opened up my online account in 2003 that kind of changed. That changed everything, really.
And at 24 and 98, was that your first time ever even walking into a bookies?
Yeah, I remember even as a young lad in my uncle's house, he was always kind of into the horse race, and I was just thinking, like, how could anyone have any interest in this? And I remember even, a couple of times in the bookies afterwards, that first time I was in it, thinking, like, why do people gamble on these greyhound jokes? Like, it's over in 20 seconds. Like, what's the point? And then when I saw the virtuals, I was kind of thinking, like, people are gambling on cartoon racing.
Yeah.
Little did I know that probably 10 years later I'd be putting €100 each way on every 14 to 1 shot. And that's how, it's just mad how you kind of think it's the maddest thing in the world, and then suddenly you're in the middle of it.
Yeah.
It's like the money almost doesn't become money anymore, isn't it? It's like you're just thinking numbers. Like I feel like if I'm betting online, so I'd even sometimes, like, see, I'd be more bad gambling when I used to drink. So I'd be up at 6 in the morning, there's nothing to bet on, but I'd sit there on virtual horses all night long. But the money in the corner didn't really bother me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I used to just think numbers, like, and then it's only the next day when you come around, the following day, you're like, I lost blading 400 or 500 quid there, just sitting in the gaff betting on virtuals.
Yeah.
It's that disconnect, isn't it? That you're not physically handing over
Handing
50
the money.
quid.
Yeah.
Just a number on the screen, then it's gone. And you're like, all right. But it's still 50 quid.
The online thing happened. I got a €50 voucher from my girlfriend's brother for Paddy Power, and I got it for a Christmas present, but I didn't try even cash that in until February. So, like, €50 sitting there, so, like, I wasn't even bothered betting, so it wasn't a big thing. And then I went into the bookie shop and said, can I use that to place a bet? And they said, no, you have to open up an online account. And I went, all right. So I had the old Dell PCs in my bedroom. Like, I didn't even have a laptop at that stage. Went home, opened up the account. And now exactly what you said, like, it was like, it didn't feel real because I had to associate my credit card to make lodgements into it. So now you're gambling with free money essentially, because if you win a bet, you put off the minimum repayment off the credit card. And then that just, it's like if you're going spending money on it, you don't rationalize, you just kind of keep spending. And it's only when it gets to a certain point you kind of go, oh, hold on, I may try to pay off some of this. But also the ability to place a bet from the comfort of your own bedroom without actually driving to a car, going down, filling out a docket, getting money, handing it over the counter, coming back. So it made it a lot easier. And for me, they were the two elements that really kick-started my gambling kind of slowly creeping up.
Yeah, you were saying.
So you thought now 3, so you're about 5 years into gambling then. Did you ever think, like, this is an issue, or are you just like, no, I'm all right, it's not affecting my life, I'm coping with this?
No, well, 03, when I have my whole betting history. So from 03 to 2011, 8 years of my gambling history is in a document, 1,106 pages long. Now, the first page of that document shows the bets I was doing. I was doing a £5 on Roy Keane to get sent off, €2 Michael Owen to score the first goal. I think my first bet online that won, I think it was a tenner on Henrik Larsson to score the first goal in the Celtic game. So the bets I was doing, it was very much like still your regular gambling.
Yeah.
But because it was online, I was starting to do it a little bit more regularly. So instead of just doing it on a Saturday, maybe the odd horse race, I was now going on every night. And you might be gambling on, as you were saying, stuff in the middle of the night or the next available thing. But also the amounts of money slowly started creeping up as well. So it was like a a progress, I suppose, or a continuum.
Yeah, and I suppose the big thing here is the fact that it impacted your life, your employment life, so your career. Do you want to take us into that? This is the big jump now.
Yeah, I suppose before maybe jumping into that side of it, there was one bet that I always say changed everything, and it was 2005. It was 2 years into my online gambling, and it was the final of the UEFA Cup, now the Europa League, and CSK Moscow were playing Sporting Lisbon, and CSK Moscow were 1-0 down at half time. The match was on in Sporting Lisbon's ground as well that year, so that probably added to the price. But they were 10-1 to win the game, and I thought it was a really good bet because I've been watching them throughout the tournament. And got home, had a laptop at this stage, sitting in the sitting room. I got home at half time from work, and my partner was sitting beside me. I remember even just turning the laptop slightly so she couldn't see how much money I was going to put on it, because she knew I liked the bet. So she knew I went down on Saturday, and I always said I'm only putting a fiver, tenner. But now I was kind of gambling 50s.
Yeah.
And I remember putting 50. I was going to put €50 on it to a 10-1, which would have been €500 win. And just as about to press bet now, I noticed that West Ham were playing Ipswich in the playoff semi-final against the Premier League, and I decided to put Bobby Zamora in on the bet as well as first goal scorer. So I did €50 double, pushed down the laptop cover, went up to have a shower, came down, and within 11 second half minutes, Bobby Zamora scored the first goal, and CSK Moscow gone 2-1 up. Now I let a big shout out of me, and herself comes in and says, "What's the story? Liverpool playing?" And I said, "No, that's next week, Champions League final." And I remember I said to her, just like, I have a tenner on, I have a few other bets in, but if this team wins, I'm due to win about €500. And she said, "Oh, that's great." And I said, "Even better, I'm going to give you most of it towards, but we're getting married a couple of years there." I said, "Listen, put that towards the wedding." And then they scored a third goal, and she was kind of invested in it a little bit as well. She coming in now checking, because obviously, it was because it was a lot of money. And when the bet did come up after CSK Moscow won 3-1. Again, I kept the laptop away so you couldn't see it. But when I logged in, it now showed €4,950. So within the space of an hour, I won nearly €5,000. Now, instead of being delighted with that, I was kind of going, why didn't I put €100 on it?
Yeah.
Why didn't I put €200 on it? I could have won the price of the wedding, price of a new car. Now, I did take the €500 out and give it to herself. I kept the €100 and probably bought a couple of CDs or something for myself as well. I put €1,500 thereabouts back onto the credit card as paying off some of the kind of loans or loan repayment on it. But I left €3,000 in my online account to gamble with, and you kind of see this free money then. What happens, I started doing bets of €100 and €200. And if you're doing €200 and €100 bets, it won't take long to go through €3,000 if you're not winning.
And it's hard to go back then to the 10 and 20
Exactly.
bet, isn't it?
So then what happens is you lose the €3,000. I lost a lot of it around the Champions League final in 2005 with Liverpool, and then you went chasing it. And then I started chasing that then. So your whole psychology nearly flip-flops, and you start chasing the €3,000, because you don't think that I'm after starting with €50. You think I'm after losing €3,000, and then you chase. And then
Well,
next thing,
essentially you did.
yeah,
Like that was your own money.
yeah. And you start chasing the €3,000, and then you lose €5,000 on your credit card, and then you go to the bank, get a loan, top it up, start the whole process again. And fast forward on 2 years later, when I get married, I'm about €25,000 in debt before I get married, all gambling related. So it very quickly started to impact life.
And does anyone in your family have an inkling that this is going on?
Not until it came to light in the weekend, 29th of June, 2011. People knew you liked the bet. It was only afterwards then people said, "Oh, that's why you were so withdrawn. That's why, even the night your stag party, you went missing for 3 hours because you were down at Paddy Power's when all the lads were celebrating your stag party. That's why you were more stressed at your wedding. That's why, you were just a shell of a person for lots of times." Like, people notice a change in my persona, would never put it back down to gambling. But there was changes within me.
How bad did it bring you mentally?
Very low. I very much at the end, I had suicidal ideation. Again, I can chat about that later on, but I was in a hotel room in Carrickfergus thinking of taking my own life. Yeah. So it starts off as a one-pound bed, and then it builds up to that.
So I jumped ahead a bit. So when does this jump happen? What year are we talking? 08?
So 07 was when I got married.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks before the wedding, I'm €25,000 in debt. We're supposed to have €6,000 on my credit card to pay the balance of the wedding. And my wife-to-be had been giving me money to pay off the credit card. And I wasn't. I was trying to win back all the other money. So any money was coming in, I was gambling it. And then I remember even, about a week before the wedding thinking, how am I going to get this money? So I went into the credit union and I said, "Can I get a loan of €6,000 for a wedding?" And they said, "No, we can't give you money. You've got too many top-ups in the last 12 months. And I go into my bank. They say the same. So I'm kind of week before the wedding and kind of going, how am I going to get this money together? So what I do is I start selling all possessions, trying to win. I'm putting it online and they're putting money onto the account, trying to win the exact amount. And then we got a present of the wedding, the balance as a present, and so I thought I was after getting no trouble here. So I arrive over to Cyprus, like 80 of us went over for the wedding, and I'm sitting there. I had an old Nokia 3210 at the time, like smartphones were only coming in. So I was there. I used to ring in my bets. So like even when I was ringing in bets, I used to know my 16-digit credit card number off by heart when I was ringing it in. So I knew that I couldn't ring in bets over there. I didn't bring my laptop with me. So I'm thinking, I'm over here. I'm after getting out of jail as such with the present.
Yeah.
Sitting there thinking, I'll be fine. I'll fix the other bit when I get home. But part of me was always thinking as well that my fiance thinks there's another 6,000 in the credit card, so she could ask for extra while we're over there. So part of me is always thinking I need to get this back quickly as well. So I'm over in Cyprus. 40 of us arrived the first night. Drinks on arrival, dancing, singing for the night. Going to bed that night, I noticed a couple of PCs in the foyer of the hotel with internet access. So my thing was, well, maybe I can have a few bets when I'm here. And then you're also thinking, well, we're after getting a bit of cash as present, so I can use some of that to pay off the hotel and use some on the credit card. So I start gambling. And the first morning I sneak down, put in the Cypriot pound and lose a couple of €100 off the bat. And then you start panicking again. So then by the afternoon you're down €1,000. Then you're down €2,000. Then you're down €4,000. And then a couple of days before the wedding I put €2,000 on a horse to try win it all back. The horse gets beaten by a neck. And I'm there sitting in the hotel bar thinking, shite, what am I going to do? It was 2 days before the wedding. And my friend even came in and said, are you okay? I mean, best man, are you okay? He said, you haven't been, yourself since we arrived. And of course I fobbed them off saying it was just wedding nerves. And then I remembered, I went online to try to get a free bet, and I remembered that I had an ongoing bet that I'd forgotten about. And two of the parts of the 4-part accumulator had already won. Derby County were playing that night in the playoff final. They barely won 1-0. So 3 parts of the accumulator out of 4 had won when I'm going in to celebrate my wedding. And I know there's a horse race 2 days after the wedding. That horse has to win. If that horse doesn't win, I have no way of paying for this wedding. And I was stressed during the day of the wedding. Like I didn't enjoy it for what it should have been. It was tarnished by gambling, of course, yeah. And then 2 days after the wedding, I'm sitting in the hotel room. My wife potted around behind me, oblivious to the fact that I needed this horse authorised, ridden by Frankie Dettori, to win the Derby for me to pay for it. I think there's about €2,500 going on to a 6-4 shot, and he won. Now he came from. I remember watching the race, and I didn't understand the track, and he came from way back to win. And I'm sitting there, and I go into the bathroom, and I'm biting my fist, trying not to kind of yell with just pure relief. And I get out of jail as such, and the money comes onto the credit card, and I pay the wedding. But you're kind of left with that thought of I shouldn't be waiting on a bet to pay for anything, let alone my wedding. And you kind of go, well, I may try fix this. The way you get that moment of clarity. The problem is, I'm sure you'll agree, like if you've had many guests on, saying about talking about alcohol addiction, you can't, it's commonly accepted you can't drink away with an alcohol problem. You have to go for support or help. But the gambler believes he's that one bet away from fixing everything. Yeah. And that's what I done. A couple of months later, I went back to the bank, got another couple of grand, came up with this big plan of how I was going to win it all back. Because now I had to win €31,000 back. And I started that whole process again. Roll on 2 years later, and I'm €45,000 in debt.
But Tony, do you reckon even, because I think, do you ever get that moment when you have a big bet on and you think, if this bet wins, I'll never gamble again? Did you believe if you had got back to even money, you wouldn't have gambled again?
There's a great film called Mississippi Grind, and it's about gambling, and they win the jackpot in the end. I probably ruined it for if anyone hasn't seen it.
Spoiler alert.
Right into the end.
Yeah, spoiler alert. And there's a moment at the end of it where he sits back in the car, and even though he's sorted everything out, he's going back at it. Because it's about being in action, it's not about the money. Yeah. If I got all that money back at any point of my addiction, I would have started again. Like there was one point where I won €10,000. I think it was the half-time, full-times in the start of it. Could have been the 2006 World Cup. It was before it was really a problem. And I could have cleared all the debt. Now, I wasn't gambling related debt at that time. I could have cleared everything and had €1,000 left. And I said, right, now I'm clearing everything. I remember I was on a high that night and thinking, right, I'm going to go book a holiday in the morning. It was a Saturday night. I'm going to book a holiday maybe Monday morning when the money comes into the account. And then I was just thinking, I don't need a holiday. I'll lose €1,000. It was the Galway races, and I lost €1,000, and then I went chasing. By the end of the week, the €10,000 was gone. So it was kind of like there was never it was never going to stop for me until I hit the rock bottom.
And that's the thing. That's like the worst thing for a gambler that they can do is win. Because once you get that high, they're like, "Do you know what? If I won once, I can do it again."
Yeah, you
And
chase
constantly
losses,
chase it.
chase wins.
Constantly.
Yep.
And it's sad because it is one of the biggest highs you can get in life, probably. Some of the biggest highs I've ever felt was waiting on one horse and you've a treble on, or when you're watching a match and you've a bet builder on, you have the first goal scorer, that's in, this is in, you're waiting on that last thing. That high is unmatched. But that low, when you lose a few quid that you don't have, is one of the worst that you can go through. Do you get me?
You would fast forward a couple of years, and I had a 14-team accumulator on a Wednesday night. It was the English League Cup, Scottish League Cup, and Belgian League Cup. And there was one team called Lark, and I had 13 out of 14 of the bets up. And I knew they were up.
On the accumulator?
Yeah, and I would have won €300,000 to get me back. And that would have got me back. And Larkin were 1-0 up on the 79th minute.
Sorry, did you say you were 300,000 down now? You
No,
were
I would have. Yeah, I would have been. At this stage, I would have stolen €300,000, and this would have got me back to that 0 point. So I never forget. Like, it was a 14-team accumulator, and that 1-0 up in the 79th minute, the other crowd equalised, and I never forget that pit of the stomach stuff. And I was
How
on a
much
high.
had you got in it?
It was small. I think it was €1,700 I had on it.
Small amount.
Small amount.
€1,700.
Well,
Small
compared
amount.
to putting 40,000 on the Norwegian ladies football team.
I know, but 14 fold accumulator. Like, if I was to do a 5-fold accumulator and put a score in it, I'd be like,
Yeah,
5 teams of scores a bit much.
I suppose when they do say no small amount, yeah, but I suppose in comparison to where it went, it would have been smaller.
But that's the thing. That's what I'm saying. It's hard to go back when you start betting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
It's hard to go back
Yeah.
to the €20.
You can't.
Get me? You can't go back yet, definitely. Yeah,
But I
even
couldn't for two things, because of the excitement, but also because
You
I had
needed
to
it.
win all this money back. It was
Yeah.
always about trying to win the money back and get back to zero. Now, would I have stopped when I got back to zero?
Definitely not, no.
No, I don't.
for
think
a
so.
week or two, I bet you would have.
Yeah,
Should have
but
been
I
like,
did
oh,
for
my
I
God.
did for at various points. I did because you got such a shock from it.
Yeah.
But then the old itch comes back and you kind of go, well, and it was always about, like, it was from a very early stage, especially when I started taking money, it was always about trying to win that back.
So let's get into that, where you start taking the money, because you said there that you were stealing the money. So I'm sure a lot of people won't actually know your story, because if they see the name, they probably won't realise who you are. But let's get into that then.
So I suppose getting a new job, I got the job of branch manager in Gorey in probably 2009, which was seen as a huge thing for someone my age to get it.
Yeah,
I moved up through the organisation.
Gorey Post Office.
Gorey Post Office, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was about €45,000 in debt at that stage because of my gambling. And I remember even thinking, I'm not going to be able to take up the position, because I had to buy we had to buy a second car. I had to go in and beg the credit union for €1,000 to be able to buy a run around the car to take up the position. Went into the job. Again, it was another moment that was tarnished by gambling, because I couldn't even enjoy the fact I got this big job or promotion. So I went in, and the credit union said, listen, don't come back to us for 18 months. You won't get anything. So my gambling kind of stopped for a while. I threw myself into my work, and I would have been doing the €20 on 15-team accumulators to try. I wasn't. I was trying to win back to 20,000, 40,000, whatever it was. And I was doing a lot more lottery. I was kind of doing €100 lottery a week, trying to win the jackpot. And then I remember I went into the Paddy Power one day, and I saw someone lodging money over the counter for their online account, and I was just thinking, I can start doing this again, because I was always very mindful of doing bigger bets in the office, because I always felt someone would question it, whereas online it's completely anonymous.
Yeah.
So I started selling stuff again, starting to bankroll my big plan again to try and win all this money back. And then I remember my wife came home one day and she said she was pregnant. And again, what should be the best news, and was the best news I ever got, because we have a lovely daughter, but I remember thinking, crap, because I knew that she wasn't going to be getting maternity
breaks
pay.
that moment.
Yeah, because I knew that she would, she in her job at the time didn't have maternity pay, so she would be back on social welfare for the duration of the
Big drop
pregnancy.
in money.
Yeah, so it was a huge drop, and I was depending on the money for half the mortgage, half different bills. So I was thinking, I only have 5 months or 5 or 6 months to try to get all this money back before she goes on maternity leave. So then the pressure really hits you. So, like, again, in the presentation for the schools, I show a picture of someone getting sick into a toilet. So while she was getting sick in morning sickness in one bathroom, I was in the other bathroom each morning getting sick with stress. And you were saying earlier on that, like, there's not a physical sign of gambling, but there was a definite physical sign of stress on me. I was bloated with stress. I was comfort eating, staying in the spare room, probably drinking, I wouldn't say, problematically, but definitely alcohol abuse, going out Friday night and just forgetting about everything. And I remember being at a fraud conference a couple of years ago, and they said for fraud to happen, 3 elements have to be present: pressure, opportunity, and rationalization. The pressure I was under was huge. The opportunity was there because I had access to the safes, but I also knew the systems of Post, and I started rationalising what I started to do, because I started stealing money. And it started off as coin at the start, and I'd manipulate the coin bags. I knew that they'd go by weight, and once I started stealing more money, like, I suppose I was stealing hundreds at the start, then it went to 1,000, and then 2,000, and then when it went to about 4,000 or 5,000, again I was convinced. You ever see that? I always say, no, Dumb and Dumber, like Christmas.
Yeah.
He finds a briefcase full of a million.
Yeah, filled full of IOUs.
Yeah, that was kind of. I was convinced that I would win it back. It's just an IOU, I'll win it back. And that's what you rationalise each and everything. And I remember I started stealing notes. So the notes for the pensions and social welfare would come wrapped in bundles of 50,000. So there'd be 10 bundles of 50s wrapped in plastic. So you used to slice down both corners, and using a needle nose pliers, I take out 2,000 or 3,000 from each bundle, seal it back up, mark with a black marker, and put it at the back of the safe. So I think by the time I got my first audit, I'd stolen €8,000, and he came in, cash audit, counted 12 bundles, €600,000, where in fact it was only 592. And then he kind of turned around and said, "Yeah, that's brilliant, Tony. Cash looks good." And then I remember when he left, I had another one of those moments of clarity where I go, "This is wrong. I'm stealing money here. It's not me as a person. I'm not that kind of person." And I rang my mum, and I just said, instead of saying, "Mum, I've got a problem with gambling," I said, "I've got a problem with money." And that's what you do. You see it as a problem with money, not a problem with gambling. And I asked her to get a loan of €8,000 from the credit union, and begged her not to tell me that. And it took me a few weeks to get around her. I was the blue-eyed boy at home. And manipulate her to get a loan. I said I'd do the repayments, I'd done the guarantor. Remember getting the cheque for €8,000 on a Wednesday evening, and I couldn't get cash in the credit union. And I went back to the office, and I couldn't put the cheque into the safe because the audit would usually come on a Thursday morning. So I knew I was due the main audit, where they come in and take over the office for the whole day. And I, sitting there with the cheque, said I can't put this in because it wasn't endorsed with savings or investments. So if they did come in,
Didn't know something was up.
didn't know that it was a personal cheque. So I just had to hope they wouldn't be there the following day, and then you could put it through the safe, and it'd be flushed through the system for the next week. So I'm standing against the radiator half 8 the following morning. I see the 5 suits walking through and my heart drops. And at any stage, like Russian roulette, at any stage they could have opened up any of one of those 3 bundles that were missing money. And here was I with the solution in my pocket. So then they go through the whole audit and hand money out, but didn't go when they checked the cash. They must have put back in the ones that were missing money back at the back. And 5:30 they turned around and said, "Everything's perfect, honey."
They didn't say.
Didn't see it. They didn't open up one of the bundles that was missing money. So again, I was absolutely emotionally and physically drained in the chair. And then it's like a scene of a film. You know, the camera panning on someone, you can really see what they're thinking. And I'm kind of going, they're not going to be back for another 6 months. I've already got through it twice. If I just leave that there, I can use this €8,000 to bankroll my new plan. And I
So the
started
money are they getting off your ma, basically.
So I cashed it in and started gambling that.
It's the equivalent of what happened at the wedding, basically.
Yeah.
You were down £6,000, someone paid it, or you have £6,000 to play with.
And I started gambling, and I lost it within 4 or 5 weeks. And then, of course, you start stealing more money and more money. And my daughter was born a couple of months after that, and by the time she was born, I'd stolen €68,000. And again, I just hid that while I was out on maternity leave. Another big moment ruined by gambling. And I remember even in the hospital, ringing everyone at 2:30 in the morning, giving the good news. And there's tears rolling down my face, and not tears of joy. What it should have been was tears of sadness, anger, regret, giving out to myself, how did you get to this? Like, how did I get to, like, €68,000 was, it was kind of, and I hadn't been able to gamble it back or win it back. I was €68,000 I thought, but I also had 48, 50,000 I had to try getting to my own. So it was just pure pressure. It was horrendous.
So, personally, over your head, there's about €50,000 in debt legally.
Yeah.
And then you had to robbing 68,000.
Yeah. And you're robbing to try win back the other, to try get back to that zero. And it was all like, even when I'm doing the presentations at schools and stuff like that, I'm always very conscious. That's all I keep saying. It was always about getting back to zero, fixing it, always about fixing the problem. And I got back after 3 weeks paternity leave. I didn't even want to take time off with my daughter anymore because I wanted to be there to try steal more money to fix it. And I just kept stealing money. And
were you doing the same technique every time? Yeah.
Do you remember your first time stealing? How much was the first amount that you stole?
I think it was €100.
€100.
Yeah. Two bags of €2 coins.
and then just gambled that, and then
It would have been actually €90 because it would have replaced with a bag of 10 cent, and that used to bring the weight back.
Right.
So that, and then it was in a pink cloth bag. So I knew that they picked it up, didn't know that it was, and even if they weighed it, be very similar in weight. So I was used to be experimenting with all this.
the thought process just to get the money, like.
Yeah, but see, it's like any addiction. It's like any kind of, especially gambling. You'll find ways to get money. Like you'll think of ingenious. Like I was only even talking with this the other day to someone. Like I remember getting a tip for a horse on the day I was going on my holidays. We were going to Lanzarote or Tenerife or something that evening. I had €1,000 in my pocket, spending money, and got a tip for a horse run for Paddy. I think in the Scottish Grand National, 25 to 1. Was told each way bet you'll get your money back. Went into the bookies an hour before the race kicked off, and I'd lost nearly all of the money because I was gambling on cartoon races, gambling on everything, and I just went on that kind of chasing. The horse beat Ruby Walsh on the favourite, who was 6 to 4, I think, by a nose, and I just about won the money back. Just before that race went off, I was down €900, and I was thinking to myself, right, if this horse doesn't win, I'm going to go outside, I'm going to start beating my head off the wall, go home with cuts and greys, throw my wallet away and say I was mugged. And that's the levels you'll go to. You'll find ways to navigate anything. I think I lost my wallet 3 times. I'd never, I'd never really lost my wallet. It'd be there, I'll do it now. Yeah. But I used to find ways to navigate and to navigate through different situations. But that was one of the ones kind of looking back, kind of going like, you were willing to put your head nearly through a wall just to cover up this gambling.
It's scary, isn't it? Like,
and
I think most people as well have a story about gambling where, because many a times I left the bookies and thought to myself, you know, I'd rob a car now at this stage. Like, I remember years ago, we was Forbidden Fruit, you know Forbidden Fruit? We were supposed to go there, me and all the boys, and the day before Forbidden Fruit, we were all in the bookies, we were having a few drinks, tomorrow's going to be great, and no matter how much it is, no, you're going into really, really bad debt, but I remember I had 600 quid on me, and I won a bet, 300 quid, so I was up to 900 quid or something. And I ended up losing that within the space of 2 or 3 hours, all of it. So I remember leaving, I was walking up the road, I was like, looking in cars and all, I was saying, I'd love to break the window and just take money or do something. Now, I never did, thank God, but I remember thinking, like, I'm at the fucking all that away there. Can't go out tomorrow, can't go to this, I had to be in buzzing all day. And you're thinking about all sorts of things to try and get money up just to go out then. And, like, even that, like, that's nothing. That's a tiny portion of the amount that you ended up losing.
Yeah, but I think it's relative. I think the stress or that feeling is the very same. Like it's the amount of money. Like I've worked with numerous people on a professional, in a professional sense for years, and 90% of their story is 90% of my story. Like 90% is what you describe or I describe. You kind of go, yeah, bar the zeros.
Yeah.
It's the exact same nearly. So it kind of. It's relative. Like, is that desperation feeling of in that moment you're willing to do anything. The difference was maybe that you didn't do it and I did do it, but given any other situation you could have ended up like you often people say I never would have stole, like, you know, you're this, you're that, the other, you know, like online you're always going to get online abuse, like you're a scumbag, you're this, you're that and the other. But I would always say, like, if your back is against the wall, you're do anything.
Desperate man.
So if we're in the middle of something and you can't feed your family, you'll end up stealing to feed your family. 100%. Like, we'll do things in desperate situations. Now, I'm not kind of trying to condone what I done, because what I done was wrong. Like, I should have or could have asked for help. Like, looking back now, that's what I do now. But in that moment, like, fear, pride and ego stops you from looking for help. And then, you know, you don't want your friends kind of turn, what do you mean you gambled €300 for, like, you need you? What's wrong with you? And I doubt that's what stopped me. And then, like, I never knew how to ask for help as a younger person because I always felt insecure. So, like, it was nearly like it was always layering up towards then. And I was just like, I'll fix it. And you're convinced you'll fix it. Yeah.
So, you said you robbed 68 and then you're about 50,000 in debt anyways. So, that means you've gambled over, what, you're talking about €120,000, give or take, years of gambling. That's how much you've lost. How many years span would that be? So what year would it have been that you realised you robbed 68 grand from the post office?
2010. So I suppose you're looking at probably first online bet. I suppose the stealing part was done very, very quickly.
Yeah.
It snowballed very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So probably if you look at my gambling progression on my online account, you'll see that it starts it's a slow burner and then suddenly just boom goes. So I think it's from the first minute I stole money, probably go to 68,000, probably a matter of a month or two. I wouldn't say a month, probably 2 or 3 months. And then fast forward in September, October, November, December, fast forward 2.5 months after that, there's an extra €230,000 on top of the 68.
That you robbed.
Yeah. So by the time the third order came, I'd stolen €293,000. And I wasn't surgically moving cash at this stage. I was just changing figures on a thing called an AR, which is an accountable receipt. So when people, when checks were more popular back then, so like people would come in and pay checks for their savings, investments, bills. You would get the checks off the counter, you'd total them all up and do a check lodgement each day. So you'd have 5 of those lodgements each week for the cash account for the audit. Now, I was just upping that figure by nearly 300,000, so I had it in pencil and changing it. I didn't know where, like even looking back now, the rationalization, like I even trying to rationalize it now, like I was just changing the figure, like it was always going to get caught, but in your mind you're convinced you'll get away with it. And I remember, like there was a time with the banking crisis, so a lot of people were moving their money from the banks into the post office because it was state guaranteed. So for us to have figures of $500,000 on checks wouldn't have been unusual.
Yeah.
So I remember the audit team arrived on I think it was the 15th of December that year. It was tiny bad snow. We had really bad snow around that time, and they hadn't come in November, and then they usually wouldn't come in December because it's so busy. But they came on the 15th. I'm sitting against the radiator, and I always used to sit there on a Thursday morning looking at the cameras, and I saw them coming through the alleyway, and my heart just dropped. I ran out to the toilet, got sick, changed the figure, brought the ARs, just 5 little slips of paper, texted my wife and said I'm sorry for everything, because I was convinced that was the day I was getting caught. Because you would have like 300,000 off, and the office balance would be probably around 800,000 or 900,000. So nearly a third of your office balance is missing.
Yeah.
Went back in, put them back in the safe, and just waited to be caught. And I remember he took the ARs out of the safe, went over, jotted down the figure, and I was kind of looking at him, and put them back in. So he didn't question the figures there and then. Again, they left that day and said everything was perfect, Tony. The office is going great, but I was also left with that thought that at any given time, the proper figures from the bank would come through to their office, and they would kind of say, "Where's it would show up somewhere on a balance sheet over there." So again, you start panicking. Like 4 days later, we had that really bad snow that we had in 2010. Like the whole country came to a standstill, and I remember getting up 4 o'clock in the morning and driving to work. It took me 4 hours to do a 45-minute drive. Nearly crashed the car 4 times. My wife begged me not to go because it was,
So dangerous.
it was. And I remember I got into the office, and the area office rang and said, "What are you even doing there?" And I said, "Sure, I'm so dedicated, I'm brilliant."
Yeah.
And we were all laughing and fun, but little did know I had to be there to hide this theft. And there was people who lived 5 minutes away from the office, couldn't get out of the driveway to come to work, but I was after driving 4 hours and nearly crashing the car. And I remember I didn't care. I was potentially going to miss my daughter's first Christmas because I had to be there. And over that Christmas, I was just stealing more money, trying to fix it. I got back that Christmas, and it was a horrible Christmas for me because I was so stressed. Because you can imagine what it's like, just that mental madness. And I believe I lost my mind from January till June the following year, because I stole 1.4 million the following 6 months. So 1.4 million I stole in 6 months.
So in the space of what? So 3 years you took 300,000, and then in 6 months you took 1.4.
No, in space of about 6 months I took 300,000.
Oh, right. So you're only robbing the money over the course of
at the very end. About a year, maybe a little bit over, maybe 14, 15 months.
So what you're talking about, 1.7 in total then?
1.75, that was the total figure, yeah.
In 15 months.
Even when I say it, like it's like just to show what that looks like, I suppose it's kind of I'm stealing €15,000 a day.
Yeah, you're talking just
I've
over
done enough for presentations, like €75,000 a week.
Yeah.
And I'm physically taking 50s and putting into my backpack and walking out, and I'm like, even when I say it now, it's like there's still shivers go down back through my spine when I say the money. And when I'm doing the presentation schools, I can see some of the bets I was doing. Like I was doing Azerbaijan football, Peruvian netball, second division Australian netball, whatever was there, and it was just the next available thing. Like it wasn't that I said, right, I can wait till the weekend till I do something that I might have an idea about.
Yeah, like
Premier
I know
League.
football, I know these have a good chance when you're like, no, that's on, I'm going to back
I have to do it now because I have to get that money back straight away, because it's pure panic. And and it wasn't that I was driving around to every single Paddy Power in the country. I was lodging on 2 counters, one in Gorey, one in Carlow, and I was never questioned where the money was coming from.
So that's my question. Sorry, Terence. That was my question. So I was asking about your progression in betting. So you would have been betting small, then all of a sudden you're betting, what, 10,000,
10, 20,000, like I said, 40,000 on the Norwegian ladies football team.
and no one is questioning that. There's no one somewhere in an office clicking saying, Jesus, this fella's his betting pattern's a bit irregular here. We better step
They
in.
were, but they weren't stopping it.
What were they doing then? If
They were.
stepping
I've
in?
heard since, I suppose, Aaron Rogan done a great book called Punters around the rise of Paddy Power, and there's obviously a section around my story because it's a big part of their story, I suppose. Well, again, I admire their business acumen. Like they started off very small, and they're a multi-billion-pound operation now, but they got it wrong with my story, and probably in some ways, maybe still getting wrong in other. Like gambling addiction is still a relatively new, I suppose, in comparison to alcohol or drug addiction.
Yeah.
It's there, but it's not only really being talked about. So, like he was saying that on some days, on quieter days, that I would be doing as much gambling on my account than the rest of Paddy Power put together. My account would be, I was doing huge amounts of gambling. They Google mapped my house, see where I lived because of the amounts of money I was putting on. They thought I was another Barney Curley because I was going to catch them for millions because my betting habits were so erratic. You know, like, and he wrote about that in that book. It's well worth to read if you ever get a chance to read it. But it was just totally off the scale. Like, it was nearly like everyone was aware of my account there. Like, there was people told to stay on late at night to monitor the account to make sure that, you know, that I was able to get bets on or whatever. And it was never questioned. It was never.
No one tried to intervene and say, hey, where are you getting this money? Can you afford this money?
Gambling addiction was different landscape back then, as well as gambling as I was saying at the start. So even from a money launderer point of view, it was never questioned. And I'm sure that would be different now, but back then it was just.
And what do you think would have been the best thing for somebody in Paddy Power or someone in the bookies to deal with you back then in terms of questioning and preventing?
It depends on timing. Like at any given state, like at the start, if someone had intervened before, I suppose maybe before even start stealing money or a larger amount of money, I might be more open to someone saying, "Listen, we think you might have a problem." You might be more open to listening to someone saying that to you. By the time I had gone past that point of no return, no matter what anyone had said to me, it wouldn't have made a difference because I had to get the money back.
And that was another question I have here, Tony. Was your end goal always that I'm going to win this amount of money and I'm going to put it back into the post office?
Yep.
You were always going to put it back into the system?
Yeah, 11 years later now, since my gambling came to light, I'm still paying off my own personal debts that I'm talking about from earlier on. I didn't take any money I stole. I didn't pay off my debts.
Yeah.
And I won a lot of money as well as lost a lot of money.
How much did you win?
I won over 9 million online, and I lost 10.5 million. So my total online losses, and I know this from the documentation I got, my total online losses were 1.417 million, and I would have lost about 300,000 or 400,000 euro physically in the bookies as well.
So you're counting about over 2 million after losing.
Yeah,
Your gambling career, basically.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to sound real, but have you got anything to show for that? Did you ever win a big amount and say, I'm going to pay off the mortgage or something?
No. And I was asked that in one of the interviews when I was interviewed by the guards. So they were going through my betting history. Said, I won 462,000 euro one weekend. I said, you've had nearly €500,000 in your account there, and you never thought paying off your mortgage. And I said, no, it's my gambling money. He said, what do you mean? I said, I could have had €1,000 in my pocket. And anyone who might have a gambling addiction listening to this would definitely relate to that. I could have had €1,000 in my pocket and the car running on fumes. I wouldn't go in and put €20 of petrol in it. Or I wouldn't get a bag of chips if I was hungry on the way home, because that's my gambling money. And as I said, I'm still paying off the loans to this day, the loans to different financial institutions. But I never took any of the money, just paid off everything. I'm still driving a run around of a car. I still owe lots of money. I still, I've nothing to show for it. I lost my house through it all. I lost my marriage. I lost my freedom. I lost a lot, but I gained a lot more back. But for material wise, I lost a lot. So I've nothing to show for it. But I do. I've a good life now. I suppose I'm happy.
You're gambling
Yeah,
free.
gambling
Learned your
free.
lesson.
Yeah.
And but their lessons that
Yeah, materially I've nothing to show for it. But other than that, I've a lot more.
you come out the other side. Look, there could have been a more tragic story than there is now, you know. But see the 462 grand you were talking about there. Was that cash or online?
Online. It was all online at that stage.
You had 462 grand.
Yeah. So I started off with a €5,000 bet on a Friday evening. And it was one of those weekends where everything just went right. You know, well, not everything. I was betting online. I got a bit of a win. I think one of the bets I won €68,000 on accumulator, and then lost it all. But then another bet I had going got me up again. I had two big wins, one for 90-something thousand euro, one for €115,000. and I was on a roll. So I had 125 bets that weekend and 46 winning bets. And the reason I know all the figures I do with my presentation,
yeah.
just in case you think I'm like Rain Man or something.
No. So you have, what was it, 462 grand?
Yeah,
How much do you out to the post office then?
900,000. So just to give you an example, like that weekend, I won 80,000 euro on Carl Schwartzel, who won the Masters. I haven't already bet 48,000 euro on Tiger Woods. I'm gambling 40,000 euro on a tennis player in one match. I'm not talking about tournament, one match. And her career earnings to date at that time was 45,000 euro. So I'd nearly gambling all her career earnings. And I was even gambling 5,000 euro on the result in one game. So 5,000 euro, this game is going to be 40-15 or 40-30. You're gambling on, you're just in that frenzy. So over the course of the weekend, like, you know, like people say, like, how long are you gambling? I'm probably gambling 18 hours a day. So you're checking results, you're checking systems, you're making plans, you're gambling during the night, you're checking results. I wake up that Tuesday morning, there's 462,000 euro in my account, and I'm buzzing. I'm kind of going, right, I'm halfway there. Like, even if I got the money back at that stage, I would have been caught. But I'm in my head, I'm halfway here. And I get into the car that morning, I have to pull up the laptop. I used to gamble while I was driving. So the reason why I used to gamble when I was driving, it used to settle me. So like it's very akin to, I worked in alcohol treatment centres and drug treatment centres for a good few years as well. And the lads would often describe that in the morning, you know, that the DTs, you have to have a drink to settle themselves.
Yeah.
I had to have a bet to settle myself. It felt like there was someone trying to use a sledgehammer to beat away out of my head. And a bet used to just settle me
And
into
that
that.
would calm you.
Yeah. So I'd be there. I'd be placing bets online while driving. I'd have the phone there, so I'd be driving. And days that I wasn't gambling, there was no money in my account, I'd actually be looking at DVDs while driving. So I'd have the DVD rammed up into the dashboard. I remember, I think I watched the whole series of Prison Break while driving to Gorey. It wasn't enough that I had to drive, but my head had to be
occupied.
And it might be hard for anyone who mightn't have a behavioural addiction. Sometimes it's very hard for people to wrap their heads around that. And when I'm in the schools, I'll often say, like, it's like the panic that's sitting if I say to anyone, the students, I'm going to take your smartphones for 2 weeks. Do you know that panic? What if? It's like that.
Yeah.
The head. Now, maybe not the same, but and that morning, like, the systems were down in Paddy Power, so I couldn't get a bet on. So I sped into work. I was sitting there, put the laptop on the desk, cup of coffee, opened it up, logged on, make sure I wasn't dreaming, checked it again, couldn't place a bet. And I remember looking over at the safe, 900,000, kind of going, right, just double this up. We're back. And it'll fix everything and I'll be able to be happy. And next thing I look up and I see three audit members, three of the audit team walking into the office. And my heart just, I had no, at this stage, you're not even changing figures or anything. I just kind of go, I'm done. I just come back here on the chair like that, and they walk in and said, hi, and I didn't recognise them and said, "Hi, Tony, we're here from the Dublin office. We're here to check security." And I thought, oh, fuck. And I handed them the keys of the safe and said, no, we don't need to check that. We're just here to check the viability of putting in a drop box. You know, where they put the suitcase into the wall and drops in the money. And I'm kind of going, all right. And so I'm sitting back down and I get a phone call at that very moment, and I get a phone call, and the number's not withheld, it's a mobile number. And I answered, I said, "Hi, Tony speaking, who's this?" And I said, "Paddy." And I said, "Paddy who?" And he said, "Paddy Power." "Who, Paddy Power?" And he said, "Yeah." And it wasn't Paddy Power, the organisation, it was the person from the ads, the person from the telly.
Paddy Power.
Paddy Power himself. And I kind of, oh, okay. And he said, his exact words to me were, "You may have noticed our systems were down, but if you need to get a bet on, this is my private number. If you need to ring this morning." I'm kind of going, gee, you couldn't make it up. And I'm just said, "No, you're fine." I hung up the phone because I was very mindful of the people in the office.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like, they were from me to you way. And I'm kind of going, what's after happening? You know, you sit back down and you kind of go, this is mad. And I was asking Aaron Rogan about it afterwards, and they said it wouldn't have been unusual for that to happen. And I kind of went, that sounds very unusual. The head of an organisation ringing you to place a bet. But my synopsis of it is that they were worried about me, that I'd won big that weekend, and
that was it.
I had the ammunition to go even bigger.
Yeah.
But they needn't have worried because the audit team left at 10:30, I think, or 10 o'clock, I think. And the systems were back online. I started gambling, and I had 31 bets that day over a 12-hour period. 31 bets, 30 bets lost. I had one big win of 115,000, but I lost 30 bets. And 10 o'clock that 9:57 that night, the balance of my account is zero. I lost all over.
462.
Yeah, and then I started the whole process again. I'd won money on. You can see it on my online account. I used to bet maybe €1,000, €1,500 in the bookies, and I won €8,800. And I put back into my online account, and I started the whole process again.
Oh, that is draining. Like, I can feel that in my head. For
Because you
you.
can relate to it from gone through it.
But
Similar.
not, I wouldn't say I've even gone through anything then compared to that. Like, that is actually horrible to think about. Like, my head is spinning thinking about that. Like, I used to complain about losing, say, $2,000 or $1,000, and that'd be over. So when I used to drink, I'd go out on a 2-day bend or a 3-day bend, and didn't matter where I was. Could be in a gaff party somewhere. I'd fuck it, I'm here, I'd throw 50 quid in a bleeding virtual horse. Didn't matter. And then it's only a couple of days later you'd look back and you go, yeah, bleeding bash, I could have got a couple of tracksuits and this and that out of that. And over the course of the few days you'd be at losing $1,000 or two. You're talking 462 grand in 12 hours.
It could have been 4,600. It was what it meant.
Yeah.
It was that thing of, I was nearly there. And like I remember I had 30,000 euro on a horse at 10 to 3. Like, and it's mad. Like, I'm talking about it as if it was just a tenner.
Yeah.
Like, it's just because I'm so used to the figures. Like, I'm not trying to dismiss the amounts. Like, I remember I had 30,000 euro on a horse at 10 to 3 or 130, whatever. And I was sitting up in the bedroom, and we had a kind of a small telly in the wall, and I had the race was on. I had it piped up, and herself was calling me to come on, and I was, I'll be there in a minute. And like, I think she must have diarrhea more times than I'm in the toilet. I'll be down.
Yeah.
Because that's where I spent most of my time.
Yeah.
Gambling, and I remember the horse romped in by about 20 lengths, and I remember just thinking, oh fuck. It wasn't like I won 100,000 euro, and I didn't even flinch watching the race, and the joy had gone over, because for me it was kind of, I have to go again. I have to try use this. I was nearly like a boxer against the ropes. I was just nearly gone, and this was just like that one reprieve. And I went, I don't want to go into the next round.
Would you rather just lost the money?
You'll often hear that when talking to people at the stage when it gets to gambling addiction. There's nearly relief when you lose, because you can just kind of, as you think one of you were saying around that the mist kind of rise, and you kind of see a bit clearer, and it's when the mist rise and you kind of go, oh jeez, I still have to get this money back. But you'll often hear people saying that moment of respite is worth anything when you don't have any money to gamble for that while, because then you know
Have to go again.
Yeah, I don't have to go again. But then the panic sets in, and then the scheming sets in, and then the manipulation sets in, and then you start again. So it's like this constant, I'm even talking about almost like stress myself even. It's that constant
rat race.
yes, exactly. That's the best way. It's just constant.
Hamster on a wheel.
Yeah, and sometimes you fall off, but then you kind of going, yeah, I want to stay off, but I have to get back on.
Have to go on it, yeah.
Yeah, because I have to fix this, and it's horrendous.
So tell us about the day where it all goes wrong, all goes tits up, it blows up, and you get found out, Tony.
29th of June 2011, I arrive in on a Wednesday morning. It was a surprise audit. I didn't go into the office, thankfully, because that was always a big fear of mine, just being there and being caught right there and being kind of like trapped. And I remember I drove into the car park at the back like I did every morning, and I saw all the Portlaoise Reg cars. So I knew it was the area office, and I just had an inkling. You know the way you just know. I think what happened a couple of days previously, I had been at one of the girls who worked there. Her mum had died, and I was at the funeral in Bray or something. And I think when they went back to collect the cars, that they noticed that my car was back there. I was doing the cash account before anyone could get in the office in the morning, so I could be ready. So I arrived in, and I saw them, and it was like that rush. It was just like adrenaline. It was just kind of like, I went into flight, and I went. I got into the car and I drove. I was speeding out of Gory. I had a tracking device for tire kidnapping, satellite device. I took that apart and threw it out the window while I was driving. I took apart my mobile phone and took out the SIM card, threw that out the window. It was like a scene from a film. I was expecting the guard, the helicopters to be flying. And I hit a humpback bridge coming over, and I nearly bounced over the bridge into the river. I was going so fast. And I eventually calmed myself and got in. I think I stopped in Drogheda or Dundalk, I can't remember. And my whole idea was just to go as far away as I could. And the furthest away was Belfast, because I was kind of going, I just get to Belfast, different country. I changed a bit of sterling, and even going into change sterling, I went into a shop, bought I never forget, a Mercurial Nike hat. I had that on me, so I couldn't, I was so paranoid. And I went into the shop, I went into the bank, changed whatever I had into sterling. I think I got 600 sterling, and drove into Belfast. And I just kind of calmed and just kind of went, right, collect yourself. So what to do? Straight into a Paddy Power. Oh, no, it wasn't, sorry, it was Labrooks. I went in and started gambling.
While you're on the run.
While I'm on the run. And it was that kind of, because that's where I felt I was in that bubble.
That was your coping
That was my
mechanism.
safe place, yeah. So 5 races in, 500 sterling down, and I kind of go, I've no money here. I'm going to end up sleeping on the streets of Belfast. And I put 100 sterling on the last race, a horse at 6-1, the horse won. And I got the money back. So I went in to try book into a place in Belfast. They were looking for ID. So again, paranoid. I didn't want to book in with my passport in case the guards were flagging stuff. And I just got in the car and drove out of Belfast. And the first town I came across was Carrickfergus. So I stopped in the Carrickfergus, booked into a hotel called Dobbins under my friend's name, gave them cash, and that's where I stayed for a couple of days. It's still gambling during the day. I used to go down and start gambling. I won a fortune while there in the physical bookies. I was on a roll. I was winning money, won a couple of grand, lost a couple of grand. And still gambling online. Even though I knew the theft had come to light, I was still gambling online. I had a few bets still going. And there was a couple of Wimbledon was on at the time, so there was a couple of tennis matches that were delayed because of rain and they were pushed out. And I was still gambling, still thinking I can still fix this, even though I know the theft.
It's too far gone. Yeah,
too far gone. But at least if I can fix this, it's something. And that's where your skewed thinking comes in. So
What about your wife and family and all that?
I didn't care. I just at that point you don't care.
They know where you were.
No one knew. I
heard
left
from
on the
you.
Wednesday. All I'd done was I sent my co-worker who had been the mails manager, I sent him a message saying I'm after being involved in a car crash outside Tullow. I'm okay, but the ambulance is on the way. So it's just because I knew they were in there. So it's just about trying to buy time.
Then,
So I'm in Carrickfergus. My I suppose that the Friday night, I was there from the Wednesday. And again, from the outside, it was like someone who was on holidays. I was kind of like going out on a few drinks during the day. I was kind of going into kind of have meals. Very poignantly, I suppose, I went in to get tattoos, and I had a tattoo on my arm of this stupid looking like a Chinese kind of symbol thing, and I got that covered up. It was like, and I got my daughter's name on this arm. So it was like I don't know what it was. It was kind of like, I don't know. I wanted to have her with me, but I wanted to forget some of the past as well. Yeah. I was getting ready for I don't know what.
Like I was getting new life kind of thing.
I didn't even know what was going to. I was just getting ready for something because I knew this was big. I knew that whatever happened was going to be big, whether it was me taking my own life or me not being me, whatever was going to happen. So it was kind of like I remember everything really changed on the Friday night. I lost all the money online. And I drove into Belfast because I had one of those dockets with about €10,000 on it, you know, the ones that we used to do during the day. And again, I was waiting on a tennis match on that. So one went down, the online bets went down about 7 o'clock on a Friday, and the other one came up about 7:30. And I was there, right, I need to get this online to stay gambling. It wasn't even that I could wait till the Saturday morning. I had to get in there. It was like trying to get in and get your fix.
Yeah.
So I just had to get in. So I drove into a random Paddy Power office, handed in the docket and said, there's a bit of money in that, can you put into my account, Tony 10? And he said, yeah, no problem. Now, he was on his own, he was very busy that evening, and I remember that transaction would usually take about 40 seconds, 50 seconds. And he went into the back, and I knew he'd have to ring Gory Paddy Power.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of going, if he rings them, they're obviously going to will have been contacted by the guards because they would have put 2 and 2 together. But I didn't care, I had to get this fixed. And I remember him looking at me, and I've heard since that they had pictures of me behind the counter and they had pictures of me on their system, and they were told to take my bets but not to spook me. And but I was panicking because he was in and out, and I was kind of, this is not right. So I just spun him some yarn about the car's double parked, I'm going to go outside. And I went up to the end of the street, and I remember looking around the corner, and a police car comes flying down, pulls up outside, and I kind of go, oh crap, they're here. And they start talking to people outside, and they left after a couple of minutes and just flew off in another direction. Now, the rational mind would kind of say, listen, just leave your docket and get the hell out of here. Yeah. But no, I needed that money. I had to have it because I only a bit sterling left as well. And I had to get that docket back. I had to get back online, win all this money back, and fix something. And I went back into the office, Paddy Power office, and I went back in, and I remember going to the counter and just saying, I told him, I said, my exact words were like, can I get the docket back? I'm staying in Carrickfergus, but I'll cash it in across the water. I'm going across the water. I didn't know what I was saying. And he just looked at me and said, yeah, there you go, no problem. And I was nearly running out the door with it. And I turned around the way out, and I just said, by the way, what's the story with the police car? And I said, I was a hit and run here about half an hour ago. They were here just checking, see if anyone saw anything. And I thought they were there for me. And I just had to get out of the office. And that's when I went back and started drinking in the hotel. I started drinking really, really heavily in the hotel. I'll never forget, I was drinking with a fella with a Rangers tattoo on the side of his head. And he said he was in recovery for alcohol, but he wasn't in recovery that night. But we just drank, and he was telling me, I was saying, again, it was like I was on, like a tourist. I was telling him where I was going, and he was saying, maybe stay away from this area or that area. And we just drank for the night. He was telling me some great stories. And I remember I kind of fell off to bed about 4 o'clock in the morning. Meanwhile, down in Carlow, news had started to filter in about my friend, I think the mails manager had texted my wife looking for me, and he said that I'd said I was in a car crash or something. She contacted me with her best friend Niall, who'd contacted my other friend, who was his father was an ex-detective in Wexford. He rang up and said there was no accidents. He rang the ambulance service, and then the news started to filter through. My friend's dad, who's an ex-detective, said there was no accident, but there was a surprise audit in Gorey Post Office this morning.
Yeah.
So news started filtering through. I was I was drinking in the hotel at night. My dad was in the Garda station because they hadn't heard from me, as you were saying, for 3 or 4 days, and he was there when the CCTV footage came in of me leaving the Paddy Power office, and that's when I wasn't a missing person anymore. And I remember he got a glimpse of it, and he just saw there was cobblestones outside the Paddy Power office. So he made a mental note of that, and he went back to the house where there was a big meeting on in our house, or my house at the time. And my friend was also meeting a friend of his who worked in Paddy Power, and he was giving him the full rundown. And no one knew about the gambling. I mean, like, people knew, I bet, but no one knew. My best friend Niall would often say that the one time he kind of questioned afterwards was when he rang me one day and I answered the phone. I was in the bookies, but I came out of the bookies to answer the phone because I was so paranoid. And I didn't hang up when I went back in. He heard me going back in, and he heard the bookies. He just said, "Why is he lying to me about being in the bookies?" Like, if it was your partner or wife, you might like say, I'm not in the bookies, but he said, why would he lie to me about where he was?
And you keep this lie from everybody.
Yeah.
Friends.
Double life. It was only afterwards, again, he questioned that, and then they kind of said, they noticed that I wasn't myself in certain situations. But also, like, he was always saying, I remember going to a match, he said, you start talking to me about German second division football. I was kind of going, why are you talking to me about that? So, like, there was signs there, but no one ever put two and
It's only
together.
really when the aftermath, there's something you're sure to go.
Yeah,
It's up then.
that's what was. Yeah, especially with gambling. So that, and he'll always tell the stories. Well, they feared the worst, so he'd gone around all the beaches in Wexford, expecting to find my body washed up on it because they were hearing the extent of it. That night when he arrived back to the house, there was 15 family members or 16. They were all in the house. Apparently, it was a very heated house. They were trying to what we could do. My father came in and said, "Listen, he's after been spotted in Belfast." They used Google Maps to find that Paddy Power, the one with the cobblestones, and got the address, and decided we're going to drive up the following morning to try to find me or get some information. My best friend Niall came back, and I remember my sister will always tell the story that he called her outside, was telling her the story, and she just clapped. My wife collapsed on the lawn when she heard it, like, and it was just the pure shock of it. The amounts of money, the fact that I'd stolen, the fact that they thought it was tiger kidnapping at the start, because there was a couple of them around the one post at that time as well. So meanwhile, they all left for Belfast the following morning. I got up fairly groggy about 1 o'clock, and I went down to the bookie office. And that's when I had my last ever bet. It was a horse called Bidet in 235 in Newbury, I think. And it lost the course. I had 100 sterling on it, 11-4, I think. And I remember when I was waiting for the race to start, I opened the newspaper, and because the media silence was over now, there was a picture of the Gorey Post Office, headlines: post office manager steals 1.75 million. And I don't remember any of the article, only that family and friends are looking from the Wicklow Mountains. So it's the first time.
The Wicklow Mountains?
Yes, they were looking for me in all the beaches and mountains. They thought I was dead. So I just said to myself, I made contact because I hadn't spoke to anyone. So I went back and I had a laptop. I didn't have a phone, so I started emailing my wife. And I was getting the messages back straight away, and the messages were getting darker. So I was in a darkened room in Carrickfergus, in room number 6 in Dobbins Inn Hotel, and my mind was getting darker. I was emailing saying, I'm sorry for everything, tell my daughter I'll always love her. And I was thinking of taking my own life. I was thinking, I can't, I was so overwhelmed, I can't deal with the shame, the guilt, whatever else was going to be coming with it. I can't even deal with prison because I knew that was coming. And so I was just thinking, I just want an easy way out of this. And also, I just want the madness that's in my head to stop. That'll quieten everything, because your head is just totally spinning. So I just thought, right, this is the only way I can quieten this. And I'm sending these emails, and they arrive into the Paddy Power office in Belfast. And luckily, the same lad was on from the night before. And after a bit of gentle persuasion by my friend, because he wasn't going to give any information, and he saw how upset everyone was, he told him that I said I was staying in Carrickfergus. So they were all flew to Carrickfergus in the cars. They arrive in, and my car's down by the seafront when they arrive in. Now, I just had to move it in the morning from the hotel room. Total coincidence that my car was out. I was up in the hotel room writing emails, and as I said, my mind was getting very dark. And they got the PSNI involved because they were worried and they couldn't find me in any of the hotels. So they got the PSNI to go into the hotel, and I got a phone call from reception and at 5:30 in the evening saying, "Do you want your room cleaned?" I was kind of, no one rings at 5:30 in the evening. Got a bit paranoid, looked out the window, but if I'd looked a bit more to the right, I would have seen all my family members were up by the Witherspoons, and I got a knock on the door 2 seconds later. 2 PSNI officers with guns standing at the door. One of them stepped in. I could hear the other fella run downstairs telling them we found him. Went out and told my family members because they thought I was at the brink of just about to do something. And so it was very much they were panicking. We only have a certain amount of time. And the other fella stood in. I'll never forget. I can still picture him. He stood in, and he leaned against the radiator, and I just broke down. I fell back in the bed and I just broke down. And that's my first ever experience of psychotherapy or counselling, because a poor, complete stranger got everything. I just opened up about everything to him, and he just sat there and listened. And it felt good. It felt relief. And yes, my family members filtered in and out of the room over the next couple of hours. All I wanted to do was see my daughter. I was very distraught. All I wanted to do was see her. And we left Belfast about 10:30 that night. Stopped into a petrol station on the way down to get a bottle of water, and walking to the petrol station. Very surreal moment. I actually walked in and I could just see my picture out in front of all the newspapers. And very paranoid, and get the bottle of water and get back into the car. And then I heard the news bulletin on the radio. Apparently it was on the 6 o'clock news, 9 o'clock news. But it only really hit me when I got home and I saw my mum for the first time. The look she gave me, I'll never forget the day I died. It was just pure look of disgust and disappointment. And that's when I really knew that the impact I had on other people. And I didn't leave the house for 3 weeks, and then I went to treatment then 3 weeks later, and that was the start of the recovery journey.
When were you arrested for it?
I went into treatment. I actually presented myself. I was so paranoid about being around the town. The guards were brilliant throughout the whole process, I must say. And the detectives, they met me in my solicitor's house, and they took a lengthy statement, and they said, just hand up. I handed up. My dad had already handed up the passport, and I just said, I'm going to treatment. I said, listen, we'll talk to you when you get out. Make sure you get yourself right. And went into treatment, and I got out on the 7th of October, and I was asked to present myself to Gorey Guard Station on the 7th of December, I think, 2011. I was arrested and charged with 46 counts of theft and false accounting, interviewed for 12 hours. You know, the laces taken off you, the belt taken off you, the mug shot, the fingerprints, and that's when it really hits you. You're locked in a cell, eating your burger and chips between interviews, and you kind of really, and I've never been in trouble before. This was alien to me. Yeah. But they were brilliant. Even when they dropped me home that night. My friend was going to let me. They dropped me up the road. So the detective Ian Hayes was absolutely brilliant. He said, listen, we don't want people to be talking. So he dropped me so that it wouldn't see me getting out of the car, because I was actually going in to get him the needle nose pliers as evidence. And before that day had come, and they'd done 3 search warrants. They were looking for journals of how I kept it, but I kept all the figures in my head. Yeah. I'll never forget that day as well. Just sitting in my parents-in-law in a Hello Kitty bedroom, and 5 lads going around the house and interviewing everyone. It was horrible in lots of ways. But then I was arrested that day, and I was told the court case would take about a year between the book of evidence and everything. So it was a year later. I was in a courtroom in Wexford, and I was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Now I was told it could have been. I was told to expect between 5 and 7.
I was going to say, were you happy with 3?
Yeah, because I was able to prove that I hadn't benefited financially as such. Like, people say, "Oh, you benefit, you got the thrill of the gambling," but you don't get thrill of gambling.
It's not as if you're taking money and buying a car.
But I didn't have a car. The house wasn't changed. I wasn't going on holidays. For 13 years through all my gambling, I was never in Anfield once. And all the money that passed me. Now, I'm a big Liverpool fan. I've been over there a couple of times since. I was over there a couple of times before. But for all the money that passed through my hands, I never went on any holidays or went. So that was very much one of the mitigating circumstances that I hadn't financially benefited from it. And I was still paying back the money. And so that was on the lower end of what we expected. But I'll never forget, I was standing in there, and I remember talking to someone in Coomvera, and he was always saying, if they talk about the negatives first, you're okay, because the talk about the positives is going to be on the lower. I remember I said, right, just talking about the negatives. Right, should be okay. Now here I am saying the memorare and the serenity prayer and everything in the corner, and my whole family to the right, and you can see people. And I heard her saying the word 6, and I just looked over at my friend, and we just went like that. And then she said 6, and then she worked backwards, and she got 4 years of one suspended. And even, I was led away, and there's footage of it on, it's one of the documentaries that I've done called Fina. And, you see me getting to the back of the prison van and going across Wexford Bridge. There's tears rolling down my face, but tears of relief, because I knew what I had to face, and I knew that that was the worst part of it over. And I got kind of mentally strong, so that I knew that I could face whatever prison was to throw at me. But yeah, it was a tough. The unknown was a really tough. But I hands up from the start. I didn't try to blame anyone. I took full responsibility of it. It did come to light in Aaron Rogan's book that Paddy Power paid the money back, the 1.75 million. They got on post to sign it.
Paid it back?
Apparently so. Yeah, we had. I remember around the time when I was being interviewed by the post office. Afterwards, I agreed to go in and give them everything about how I done it. They said, would you mind kind of working with us to try reclaim some of the money back off the insurance, because the money was insured. I think there was an excess of $250,000, but the rest was insured by an English insurance company. And I remember, yeah, no problem, I'll do whatever it takes. And then they didn't ask then. And my solicitor thought that was a bit strange, that when he tried to contact him, said that the case for that had been pushed up. So apparently, anyway, what we believe is that shortly after the court case, that the money was paid back and was non-disclosure signed by Mon Post. And I remember Aaron Rogan asked me how I felt about it, and I felt very mixed. When it came out in the book, and I remember reading, it was in the Business Post, the article stating, I remember I felt conflicted, I felt angry, I felt a bit relief that, in some part, even though they hadn't come out and said, yeah, we had failings in this case, because they never commented on the case, that showed that they took some sort of responsibility. Yeah. Like, I take full responsibility. What I done was wrong. I should have asked for it. I should have,
someone
whatever.
should have stepped in somewhere.
Yeah. It's like, I worked in bars for years, and if someone's physically drunk, you
don't serve them.
Yeah, you say, listen, come back tomorrow, or listen, take a break. But with the gambling, it kind of really puts all the onus on the person to take their own break. Like, I need to say for gambling messages are take time to think, when the fun stops, stop. It's different landscape now. I know that there is change on the way, but back then it was just like, they will restrict your county if you win too much.
Yeah, so this is what I wanted to get into. I've heard stories where they butter up people. So were you buttered up? Were you given like these special like exclusive deals and offers and offer trips away? Like, I've heard of people being brought to Champions League finals and stuff.
Yeah, so I was VIP. So to be a VIP, you had to be the biggest loser. So you have to lose over a certain amount. I think it's over 30,000. I don't know exactly how much it was. So I was brought to the Europa League final in Dublin. Wine and dine, silver service steak. I was brought to the Budweiser Irish Derby. I know that if I'd asked for a box seat in the Premier League game, I would have got. I was told if I'd asked for a round the world trip, I would have got tickets for the World Cup in Brazil or whatever, to keep you gambling. And that's so I was definitely buttered up.
So that's what I'm saying, where they fall back on this, like, when the fun stops, gamble responsibly. But do you not think they should have more duty of care for their clients?
Definitely.
And step in there, especially when you see the irregular bet.
But to have the technology to do it.
Exactly.
Like,
because as you said, this is something I wanted to touch on, was if you win too much, they step in and be like, listen, because I heard of someone, now I thought this was a myth, this is bleeding Rain Man fairy tale stuff, but there's professional gamblers out there who are banned from every bookies up and down the country. They can't set up an account.
But even if someone does win 100 grand, they use it as a marketing thing. Oh, look, we're after getting cleared out, and it's worth the weight in gold, because they'll get more people gambling because of that.
I was going to ask you at the start, do you think there's a bit of arrogance to gambling, being like, look, I knew this was going to happen, and that's what I'm at the point in this
it's about
gold
predicting the future, isn't it? It's about kind of like, I believe I'm right. And for me, it was ego, like, kind of, I can predict it, like, I'm brilliant. And in that moment, like, if you forget all the losses, in that moment, like, I feel like I'm after winning all this money. I'm brilliant. I know what I'm doing. And then at the start, when you're sharing your bets, other people will tell you how brilliant you are. And if you're anyway insecure or not quite yourself, like that kind of
Desperation.
this is kind of great. Like, like, and then there would be arrogance though as well. Like, like there would be. I think anyway. Like, I think there is a little bit of arrogance in that whole scene anyway. Yeah,
and that's what happened to me. I got really triggered by the numbers of it all. Statistics and everything. I remember I lost 50 quid on the Super Bowl one year, betting on how long the national anthem would be. You know what I mean? I was like, this is actually ridiculous. This is stupid. Like, why am I even betting on this? But I bet on it for the sake of saying, like, usually it's over 2 minutes, but this time it was under 2 minutes and I lost. And then another time, remember McGregor fought Mayweather? Yeah. I had 100 quid on a punch to be thrown in the first 10 seconds.
And was that?
Yeah, he threw a punch in like 6 seconds or something like that. And I remember jumping around the house cheering when a punch was thrown. Everyone's like, what's wrong with you? I said, I had 100 quid on that. And that's when I knew, like, this is fucking stupid. It's not as if you're putting 100 quid on, like, you know you had to win on Saturday.
But there's no even buzz out of that. You're getting 10 seconds and you're either going to be on a high or on a low.
But the thing about in-play betting is you'll get 10 seconds, but then you go in and do it again.
Yeah.
You can do it. Like you were saying about one of the ones I had before, you just reminded me, was that, like, Champions League final, Barcelona and Man United. Like, I'd be bit of a Barcelona fan as well. And I had Rooney and Messi score both in 90 minutes. And Rooney
That was
scores.
in Wembley in
Yeah,
2011.
and Rooney scores.
Rooney scored, yeah,
No, it wasn't
3-1.
20. Yeah, Rooney scored.
It was 3-1.
And I jumped up and I said, why are you don't celebrating that? And I said, no, kind of forgetting myself. And then Messi scored. And then I jumped up and I said, what are you doing? So I had to tell him, I think I had €500 at 8-1, won £4 grand. But I told them I won €500.
Yeah.
I always took the zero off it. And I bought drinks for the night. And you were great. How'd you pick that? You know, the arrogance, the ego.
But it is one of them, like when you click a big bet and say the boys are there and everybody praises you.
Yeah, how did you do that? You
Like that's
But it's
unbelievable.
not. It's luck. It's just.
Yeah, of course.
It's complete luck.
It's
Every
only
bet.
many markets, like, you know, like someone to score off their left foot, off the other lad's arse to go into the goal. You can gamble on whatever you want nowadays. And that's the scary bit. Like, I was even talking to someone earlier on, it's like, there's markets are there, and you're kind of going, like, there could be 150 markets on a football game. There's no need for 150 markets.
No, there's
But you
not.
will find something that will resonate with you in that moment, and you'll back yourself. You know, like, for that one to throw a punch in the first 10 seconds, like, it's kind of, look, how does anyone even think of that kind of thing?
Yeah, I was seeing another one the other day. It was a bet a friend of mine done, and it was a bet builder. And you know, it's like so many shots, so many goals, so many cards. And he had like 4 out of 5 up. For something like a tenner, he was getting back 250. And at half time, he had 4 of them up. And I think the next one was like 4 shots on target. But at half time, there was already 3 shots on target. So he's waiting for 45
And the other
minutes.
team was down to 10 men as well.
Yeah, waiting 45 minutes for 1 shot on target, right? So with that tenner, he was getting back 250. The cash out was 200 quid. And I was thinking, they're withholding 25% of that bet. Knowing quite well, he's like, there's going to be another shot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You think they'd just say, right, look, there's the money. Because then they have 45 minutes to bet it. But they didn't. They withheld it. And then the shot came in. And anyways, after like...
It's all
5 minutes.
psychological. Like that, but that thing wasn't there when I was gambling that cash out or with reversal or withdrawal or withdrawal reversal. So none of that stuff was there. Like that's playing. Like if you know if you cash out early and then it does come in, you're kind of thinking, I should have had 250 instead of 225 or 200. So you start chasing the other 50. Like the whole psychology is
And
mental
as
behind.
well, the money takes a second to go from your account to theirs, but it takes 3 days to come the other way.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
it's also up in their favour, isn't it?
Yeah, but like, it is always stacked in their favour. If you win too much, they reduce what you can bet. You know what I mean? If you're losing a lot, they entice you to come back in.
Yeah, like I know we're kind of like bookie bashing now, but I'm not anti-gambling. Like even what I've gone through, I'm not anti-gambling, but I am very much anti-gambling harm. And like we're still seeing the same failings in our service of, you know, there's still a lot of failings in it. The legislation and regulation is non-existent really. We need that to be kind of changed. But you know, the problem is that there's no appetite for change there. Like we're supposed to have regulation. The heads of the bill were published in 2013. It's still not enacted. The previous record was the alcohol bill was 3.5 years, and there was heavy lobbying against that. So we need to see those changes so that it is regulated, like how it is in the UK, where there are fines for their failings. And I think like it's so set up. Like it's marketed as this entertainment, and that's fine. Like, but if you went to the cinema or went for a nice meal with your partner or went to a concert, you wouldn't ask for your money back on the way out because you see it as I'm paying for the entertainment. The problem with gambling goes very quickly from that to I expect to win my money back, or I'm doing it to try win money. So like, if you go into go to the horse race for a day, you might go at a budget of €100 and say, right, that's my money for the day. If I lose, I'm getting the experience of the horse race, and so it's a bit of entertainment. Like my best friend, he takes the week off every year at Cheltenham, and he has a budget set for it. He'll go a few pints for the week, gambles, and he's not any expectation to win money. It's his way of enjoying the racing. If he wins, okay. If not. But I think for a lot of people, gambling becomes that way of I expect to win or I'm due a win.
Yeah.
And that's the psychology. And then if you lose a bit, then you're chasing it. So there's so many of that inbuilt. That means that it can develop into something a bit more sinister.
Yeah.
And then if you look at the ease of access, as it's often talked about, mobile phones, 24 hours a day, you can place a bet, gamble on anything. I was flicking through Sky Sports today, and the odd time I go one up by mistake on that race and I come back out, but I saw Hong Kong racing at 7 o'clock in the morning. So you can gamble on anything and you have access to watch it as well. Whereas you look back, when I was looking at the results coming in on Saturday afternoon, it was the old video printer. You see the result coming in at 4:45, but now even watching soccer Saturday, it's an immersive experience if you have a bet on, because you're hearing the boys shouting, is there something after happening, you're getting that buzz and rush the whole time through. So it's just something we need. I think it's great that we're having the conversation. It's great for the likes of yourselves to shine a light on it, because it is something that we need to be talking about more.
Yeah.
In the same kind of way as we're talking about alcohol and drug.
Yeah.
I think it preys on a very vulnerable part of society, because you can bet any amount, and like that, if a tenner to you was nothing, but a tenner to someone else who hasn't got it, it's a lot.
It's all relative. Like that's what I said at the start. It doesn't matter if it's someone spending their pocket money or their disposable income. It's relative. Like if someone's spending all their social welfare and there's no food being put on the table, it doesn't matter if it's €10,000 or €10 every day. Like it could be only someone saying that's there's only €5 a day, but a €5 a day could be the nappies for the baby or the food.
Yeah.
So it's relative how it impacts a person's life. It doesn't have to be huge figures, and that's why even when I'm telling the story, I'm always kind of, and like, you know, we talked about there's figures thrown around there are huge. It doesn't matter. For the last 10 years I've worked in a space, and I've heard horrendous stories that mine doesn't even come close to. And probably the worst one I've ever heard is when a 19-year-old student took his own life because of gambling. 19, just after leaving school a couple of years, obviously developed a problem throughout his younger years, got to the point at 19 that he felt the only way he could sort this or fix this was to take his own life. And I'm one lucky few that come out the far side of that. But so many more haven't. And like there's a great charity in the UK called Gambling with Lives, and the stat they always say is that, you know, by the time we all go to bed tonight, there'll be one gambler-related suicide in the UK. And that's happening over here as well. So we need to destigmatise it, we need to talk about it, we need to look at it from a public health point of view, where we have to stop people from getting to the point of where I got to. Or I know, brilliant that you're able to pull out of it or get out, because I'm sure you'll say your experience watching sport is even better now. It took me 2 years to be able to enjoy watching a match again because it was so tarnished by gambling. Yeah. So it's brilliant that we need to get to a space where there is a place for gambling in society, but not at the level it's at now. It's flooded.
So, Tony, where are you at today now, and how's things with yourself now?
Brilliant. I suppose I work in an area, I work with external problem gambling, and our service helps people who present for their own gambling issues or family members that might present for loved ones' issues. I do school talks. We were funded by the HSE to do a number of school talks this year. I've been to over 50 schools this year, sharing a story, sharing kind of some education on gambling. My daughter is 11, very much part of my life. I get to see her every weekend, because I suppose part of the story I didn't share is that I lost my marriage because of the gambling, and she's part of my life. I'm with a new partner down in Waterford. Life is good. I remember it was actually, I think it was in this building where I was doing a previous interview back when the book came out. I said, like, I've never been in such a better place in my life because I'm not gambling, but also I'm happy in myself. I'm, well settled. And I remember saying to the person who interviewed me that time, it's a pity I had to go to hell and back to get there.
But that's it, you're on the other side of it now.
Very much
the
so,
grey clouds are behind you.
Very much.
And you're helping people.
Life still throws curveballs every so often. I still get thoughts about gambling, but life is good. Like, I enjoy what I do work-wise. I feel like I'm helping some people. Creating awareness as well is really good. But I enjoy life. I enjoy watching sport now. Even though we lost the league yesterday to Liverpool, I still enjoy watching for what it is. I still woke up with the same bank balance this morning. Yeah. I kind of made a hole in that today with Tower Records. But it's brilliant to be. I'm in a good space.
That's great to hear.
On the right track.
It's just a shame that we haven't got you for a bit longer, Tony, because there's a lot more stuff that we only scratched.
An awful lot more, but we definitely need a part two.
Before you go, Tony, what's the name of the book?
Tony Ten's the name of the book.
Tony Ten's the name of the book, yeah. So
written by Declan Lynch and myself. It's out 4 years now. It's hard to believe it was 4 years. And it's also hard to believe it's 11 years since the news broke in July, 2nd of July. So it's brilliant. But also the book by Aaron Rogan, Punters, is a brilliant book to read if anyone's interested in that side of it.
Two books, definitely, 1,000,000%.
So this is definitely substance for a part two, Tony, if you'll come back up. We'll entice you with our records. But we know you have to run, Tony, and we appreciate you coming in. Thanks very much. Episode 74. 75, right? Take us out, Keno.
Boom.
Subscribe to this podcast for free on the Go Loud app.
What you waiting for? Put your back in it. Just a little more. Throw your weight in it now. Tell your body you can. Walk it hard and long. When you finish that,
The hip knocker.
go down, go down, go down.